I just kissed my 7-year-old first grader goodnight and put her to bed with her younger sister and come downstairs. And then she appeared again at the top of the stairs and said, "Mommy." And I said, "What, honey?" And she said, "I can't sleep. My stomach hurts because I got a 90 today." And it struck me that she was worried because a number had been assigned to her today.
Hi, I'm Mark Barnes, and this is another episode of the Hack Learning Podcast. And today we are hacking assessment, this idea of labeling learning. And in the open, you heard from Kerry Gallagher. Kerry is a digital learning specialist from Massachusetts, an experienced teacher, but also an experienced mom. Kerry has 2 young daughters, and she tells a story in the beginning of this episode about her 7-year-old daughter, a first grader, who is asked by her teacher to assess something that she does in class. Now, there's nothing wrong with self-assessment. In fact, as educators, we probably do a great service to our students if we start teaching them to be self-evaluative at a very young age. And there's been quite a bit of research and writing about this in Hacking Assessment by Star Saxton. There's a huge part in there, several portions, in fact, about metacognition, self-assessment, providing feedback from student to teacher. These are really important steps in the assessment process. But Kerry's daughter is troubled because she doesn't mind the process of saying this is what I did and maybe this is how I did in my own estimation, but she's bothered by putting a number on it. So even a child feels this label, and she realizes that this is not something that she is happy about. It's not what she loves. It's not the creativity and the exploration and all of those other things. So Kerry gets to wondering about this really from a parent's perspective, because often as educators we think about everything from the perspective of the educator, and Kerry as a parent now has this disheartening situation with her daughter, and it gets her to thinking about assessment as a parent. And let's listen to what she says.
So I wanted my daughter to go back to sleep, and I didn't want her to worry about a grade on this assessment. So I asked her what it was for, and she told me it was for math. And I asked her what she'd been learning in math, and she told me, and I said, "How did you practice for it? Did you play games with your teacher? Did you have practice sheets? Did you, use blocks, or did you use coins to count and measure things?" And she told me that they had done all these activities, and she told me the names of her classmates that she had worked with. And as she started telling me those stories, she calmed down, because that's the part of learning that she likes, the activities, the hands-on, the parts where she gets to work with her friends. And I told her that that's the part of school that her father and I really care about. We don't care about the numbers. And as long as she tries hard and works well and takes good care of her friends while she's doing that stuff, when we talk to her teacher, those are the questions we ask, and those are the only things that matter. And she kind of took a deep breath, and I could see the relief in her body. And I gave her a hug, and I said goodnight to her. And I'm sure I'll have to have that conversation with her over and over, but it was just kind of a tipping point for us.
So a very important tipping point indeed for Kerry Gallagher, the parent, and that is to have this conversation with her 7-year-old daughter about learning and really what's valuable in it. And we're hacking assessment here, and we like to include steps you can take as an education shareholder, not just a teacher, but administrators, students, and parents. It's really important for parents to hack learning, just as other educators do. So I think Kerry here says one thing that you can do to, let's say, de-emphasize the label is to assure your child that what's important to you as a parent is not the number. It's not the letter, the grade. It is how you approach the activity. What did you do? If you were collaborating, how did that go? She emphasizes that it's important for her daughter to work well with others, that she and her husband are more worried about creativity and discovery and exploration and a love of learning. And those are truly the important things. So let's think now, again, from the educator side. If we're going to go into class tomorrow, what can we take away from this? We know that it's important to teach kids to self-assess, teach them metacognition, get them to understand that their critique of their own work is really the most important, and it gives students a voice, and that is critical in education. And I don't think it's that we do it enough as educators. And maybe, and this is not meant to be an indictment, I'm a parent too, but maybe parents don't do it enough either. Too often we become obsessed with the label. Well, what score did you get on this? What was your test score? What grade did you get? What's your GPA? And I think the hack we're talking about here is to do something a little bit different and to create some iteration in learning. In fact, Kerry talks about that, and let's listen to what she says.
I also wonder why all the practice, all the times she started over, all the thinking and processing and work that she did before that assessment, why that doesn't count as part of the way that we measure whether she's hit certain benchmarks or reached certain learning targets. All of that, to me, is much more important, and that's kind of the fun part from her perspective, much more so than any test or traditional assessment.
So Kerry talks about iteration. She says, if we're going to practice, which of course we do, we certainly do it in the classroom, and unfortunately with traditional homework, which we've talked about in an earlier episode, hacking homework, we do too much of it at home. We practice. Teachers teach, and they assign some kind of activity so that students can demonstrate learning, and we typically refer to this as practice. But what Kerry says is, if they're doing this, she talks about her daughter doing different kinds of activities before the assessment, working with other children, building with blocks, counting because it's a math activity, all different kinds of practice. And she says this iteration is, maybe there's an absence of iteration. And I don't know. I don't want to indict Kerry's daughter's teacher. Maybe there will be. And this is something we need to think about, and this is what we need to do. If you want to take it to school tomorrow, because that's hack learning, what you can do tomorrow. If you want to take something in tomorrow, when you have some sort of a lesson and then a follow-up activity that you might call practice, to make this truly iteration that can lead to mastery, de-emphasizing the grade, what we need to do is allow our students to make mistakes, embrace failure, and then say, let's go back to prior learning. Let's talk about it. If we're teaching self-assessment, let's go to tell me what you did. What was your approach? Why did you do it this way? And what gaps are there? And let's identify those gaps and say, well, hey, let's come over here and let's revisit this lesson because I'm not seeing that. And then let's do it again. And let's do it minus the label. And this is what's ultimately going to lead to the kind of learning that we want, the kind of learning that Kerry Gallagher, teacher and mom, and Kerry's daughter want. They want creativity, exploration. They want to be inspired. And we can't be inspired by a label. So we have to hack assessment. Get our kids thinking about what they're doing. Ask them what they're doing. Talk about their approach. Ask them to revisit prior learning, to do it again, minus the label. Don't end it with, okay, grade yourself, because we don't want to send students home with a stomachache because of something that happened in school. We want to bring joy to their lives, and that's what learning should do every day. We continue this conversation at #HackLearning. And there's always more at hacklearning.org. In fact, if you go to hacklearning.org and click on the podcast page, you'll get a list of all the episodes. You'll see a link to this episode there. And when you click into that, you'll see show notes. There'll be a link to Kerry Gallagher's marvelous blog post where she tells this story So you'll get more of it there. You could leave a comment for Kerry there if you wanted to. You can leave a comment on the Hack Learning page if you want to. And as always, if you'd like to learn more about the Hack Learning process, check out one of our books at hacklearningbooks.com. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for listening. See you next time.